They said this planet was barren, unspoiled, empty, so why did it feel haunted? The alien's breath caught, not that he needed to breathe. The air on this forsaken blue world was too thin for him, too rich in nitrogen. But something in him, a deeper part, the part that still felt, tightened. He stood among the ruins. Not ruins as his people understood them, scorched stone, broken walls. No, these were subtle ruins. A rusted sign twisted in the wind. A child's toy half buried in earth. Concrete bones of cities, overgrown but not yet gone. The world was supposed to be untouched. Unclaimed. His name, as humans might pronounce it, was Vex, third archivist of the Unity. His mission had been simple: land, survey, claim. Another quiet orb for resource extraction. Just another cog in the machine of empire. But Earth was wrong. There was no intelligent life here, the High Command had said. And they were right. There was no intelligent life here. Not anymore. Vex knelt before a shattered stone slab. Not ancient, no hieroglyphs, no golden trim, just gray, worn, cracked. He ran his 4 fingers across the carved letters, struggling to interpret the ancient Earth script his database barely recognized. We were here. That was all it said. 4 words scratched into the stone with something blunt, maybe by hand. We were here. He looked up slowly. Around him stretched endless forest, devouring a city that once touched the clouds. Trees growing through glassless skyscrapers. Vines wrapping around old monorails, suspending them in the air like forgotten dreams. Vex whispered into his comms. Command, I believe this world was inhabited. A pause. Then static. Then silence. His antenna twitched. Something was wrong. He was alone now. But not alone. Because as he walked deeper into the ruins, the feeling grew. A pressure in the air. A presence. Not ghosts, not spirits. His species didn't believe in such things. But he was beginning to understand why humans did. The structure rose from the earth like a mausoleum. Gray, weather-beaten, a crumbling library if his translator was right. Its front was half collapsed, metal beams sagging under the weight of time. Vex stepped inside, careful, reverent. He didn't know why he felt the need to whisper. Dust, decay, and yet. Books. So many books. Faded pages bound and stacked, their ink barely clinging to their stories. Vex reached out to touch one. It crumbled. But another, thicker, harder, survived. He opened it. And saw faces. Humans smiling, crying, bleeding. A history book, photographs, dates, wars, triumphs, failures. Emotions. So many of them, unfiltered, raw. His kind did not write like this. His kind did not feel like this. And then tucked in the back of the book, a child's drawing. Crayons, primitive pigments. A stick figure family, standing before a blue and green planet, with the words scrawled beneath in shaky letters. Home. Vex felt something stir in him, an ache, alien, familiar. They hadn't just lived here. They'd loved here. Fought, bled, built, dreamed. And died. But not without a trace. He returned to the landing zone, but the ship was gone. No signal, no trace. The Unity had left him. Or fled. Either way, he was alone. He should panicked. But he didn't. Instead, he sat beside the broken stone slab, watching the wind dance through empty towers, listening to the echoes of a people long gone, and he wondered. Who were they, really? Not in data, not in numbers, but in essence. What kind of species carves a farewell into stone, not as a warning, but as a whisper? We were here. Not we conquered, not we ruled, just we existed. And somehow that was enough. Vex leaned back and looked at the stars beginning to blink above him. He didn't know it yet. But the humans weren't entirely gone. Somewhere buried deep beneath the earth, others were sleeping. Waiting. And something inside the alien mind had begun to shift. He didn't fear this planet anymore. He mourned it. admired it. Because in the silence of its ruins, he felt something his people had long forgotten. Hope. They said the humans were extinct, but extinction is only the end if no one remembers. Why do they fight so hard to survive, when everything says they should? Vex's fingers trembled as he traced the fatting words carved into stone. We were here. Those words echoed louder now, a pulse beneath the ruined silence. He had wandered the shattered city for days, piecing together fragments of a history that refused to die. The archives told a simple story. Humanity had vanished, collapsed under its own hubris, devoured by wars, plagues, or some unknown disaster. Gone. But the ruins whispered otherwise. Graffiti on broken walls, "Don't forget us," scrawled in languages long dead but filled with a desperate hope. He found remnants of music players with scratched discs, children's clothes frozen in dust, and drawings, little windows into lives once lived. The most haunting of all was a single photograph, half-burned, lying near the ruins of a hospital. It showed a family 3 generations. Their eyes were defiant, proud, alive. Vex did not understand humanity's obsession with memory. His people erased the past to move forward. Humans clung to it as if it were life itself. And that clinging, it was a kind of madness. Or maybe it was courage. A sudden sound pulled him from his thoughts, a faint whisper riding the wind. At first he thought it was the rustling leaves. But no. It was laughter. Not mechanical or synthetic, but human, fragile and bright against the silence. Vex froze, heart pounding in a way he had not felt in cycles. He moved toward the sound, stepping lightly through debris and shattered glass. The laughter grew, distant but real. "Hello," his voice was rough, uncertain. No answer. Only the laughter. He followed it to a collapsed subway station, the underground mouth yawning like a wound. Inside, the darkness was thick and choking. His lantern beam danced over twisted rails and graffiti, still here, painted in red. And then a faint glow. A small circle of warmth and light beneath the rubble. A child. Eyes wide with fear, yet unbroken. The alien knelt down, trying to show he meant no harm. The child flinched but did not flee. In that moment, something broke inside Vex. The command to report, to capture, to claim was buried beneath a flood of emotion he barely understood. He reached out a hand. The child took it. And in their touch, a bridge formed between 2 worlds. Back in his ship, Vex stared at the child's face projected on his screen. She was named Maya, and she carried a story older than the ruins themselves. Maya whispered of a world shattered not by nature, but by humans' own fear and hope. Of wars fought not just with weapons, but with belief. Belief in freedom, in family, in something greater than survival. She spoke of hidden cities beneath the earth, where others like her waited, guarding secrets. Secrets that could change the fate of this forgotten world. Vex listened, his mind racing. The humans were not just survivors. They were guardians. They were a force no empire had reckoned with. And now he was part of their story. "Why do you fight?" he asked Maya. Her eyes shone in the dim light. "Because we remember," she said simply. "Because even when everything breaks, we refuse to be forgotten." Vex realized then that humanity's true weapon was not their technology or strength. It was their heart, their refusal to surrender to oblivion. Outside the ship, the stars blinked cold and distant. But within Vex, a fire had kindled. An ember of something ancient and powerful. The spark of hope. Extinction is not an end, it's a challenge, a test. How do you carry the weight of a lost world on your shoulders and still smile? Vex stood on the edge of the ruined city as twilight bled into night. The air was thick with memories, old ghosts carried in the wind, in the cracked streets, in the silent rubble. Maya sat beside him, small and fragile against the vastness of the stars. "You don't forget," she said quietly. Not really, even when the pain is too much. Vex studied her face. She was a child, yet her eyes held centuries, lifetimes of sorrow and stubborn hope. How do you survive in the dark? She smiled almost sadly, because we believe the dawn will come. That belief, it was alien to Vex's people. Their culture prized logic, strategy, conquest. But here, in the broken heart of Earth, belief was a lifeline. It was defiance. Days passed. Vex and Maya explored the underground sanctuaries, forgotten bunkers and tunnels where humanity clung to life. Vex marveled at their resilience. No matter the hardship, no matter the loss, humans found laughter in the dark. He watched Maya play with others, children born in the shadows, eyes bright with dreams. He heard their stories. Tales of sacrifice, of loyalty beyond reason, of parents giving everything so their children might live free. And through it all, hope. One night, as they huddled around a small fire, Maya told him about the lost history. The truth the surface world never saw, she said. How we were not destroyed by fate, but by our own hands. Vex listened as she described the wars, ideologies clashing, empires rising and falling, brother against brother. But deeper than that, there was something else. A secret. Something hidden beneath layers of time and ruin. Something that could explain why Earth was left untouched by others. Why the stars had forgotten this blue world. Vex's mind raced. What had humanity lost? And what were they protecting now? The answers lay buried beneath centuries of dust and silence. But he felt it, like a pulse beneath the earth. The heartbeat of a species that refused to vanish. Humans don't just survive, Vex whispered to himself. They endure. The next morning, Maya led him to a cavern entrance hidden beneath a waterfall. The path was narrow, slippery with moss and shadows. Here, she said, this is where it all began. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with symbols and paintings, stories etched in stone by hands long gone. Vex traced the images, battles, migrations, families. And then, a symbol unlike any he had seen before. A circle broken by a single line. Maya's voice broke the silence. This is the sign of the keepers, the ones who protect the truth. Why hide it? Vex asked. Because some truths are dangerous, she said, and some power too great for the wrong hands. Vex felt the weight of her words settle over him. He had come seeking a claim. Now he was standing at the threshold of something far greater. In the shadow of their own history, humans hold a light the universe has yet to see. Vex looked into the darkness ahead and stepped forward. Because some stories don't die. They wait. They fight. They rise again. What drives a people to hide their own truth? What fear is greater than extinction? Vex's footsteps echoed softly against the cold stone as he followed Maya deeper into the cavern. The walls pulsed faintly with ancient light, casting long shadows that seemed to flicker like memories. The air smelled of earth and forgotten time. Maya's voice was steady but quiet. The keepers chose silence over destruction, she said. They knew that if the wrong eyes found the truth, it would mean the end, not just for us, but for the entire galaxy. Vex frowned, struggling to grasp the gravity of her words. He was an archivist. His people collected knowledge to wield power. But here, knowledge was a curse. A weapon too dangerous to wield. They entered a vast chamber where carvings stretched across every surface. Human figures reaching out, falling, rising again. Words inscribed in dozens of tongues, many lost, others forgotten. Vex's mind raced to decode, to catalog, but the weight of the place silenced him. This was a testament not to conquest or glory, but to sacrifice. To a promise made long ago. One etched not in stone alone, but in blood and memory. Look, Maya said, pointing to a fresco near the chamber's center. It depicted a great ship, unlike anything Vex had seen. Not a war vessel. Not a colony ship. Something else. A vessel of hope. A refuge. Vex's thoughts flickered. Could this be the reason Earth was left alone? Because humanity once reached out, and others responded. Maya's eyes met his. Our ancestors sent a message. Why, Vex asked. To warn them, she whispered, that the universe was changing, that the darkness was coming. Darkness, Vex's antenna twitched. She nodded slowly. An enemy so vast, so relentless that it would consume all life, every star, every world. Vex's mind went cold. The legends of the Unity spoke of threats beyond reckoning. But no one had prepared for this. Why keep this secret? Vex pressed. Because fear divides us, Maya said. Because hope is fragile. Because sometimes the greatest strength lies in waiting. Vex swallowed hard. In the quiet shadows of the chamber, he felt the burden of humanity's legacy. Not just survival, not just memory, but guardianship. The humans hide their scars not out of shame, but as a shield for the future. He stepped forward, touching the fresco lightly. A spark ignited within him. The alien knew then, Earth was not lost. It was waiting for its story to be told again. And in the end, it's the stories we hold close that make us unstoppable. What does it mean to be forgotten, and yet still fight to be remembered? Vex sat beneath the flickering glow of ancient lights, the weight of history pressing down like the stone walls around him. The keeper's chamber whispered secrets in every shadow, but the hardest truth was the one Maya carried in her eyes. We are the last, she said softly, not just of our people but of a promise. Vex felt the sting of those words, not last as in defeated, last as in guardians, custodians of a memory too fragile for the galaxy's harsh light. He wondered, how does a species endure when the universe turns its back? The next days were a blur of discovery, underground farms tended by human hands that had long forgotten sunlight, hidden libraries where the old words were kept safe from decay. Vex watched Maya laugh despite the darkness, a laugh that was stubborn and raw. That laugh, human, was the defiance that no weapon could break. He remembered the words scrawled on a crumbling wall outside the cavern, "We will rise." And he believed it. Because humans always rose. One night, as stars glittered cold above the surface, Vex and Maya stood watching the horizon. "Why show me this?" he asked. Maya's eyes shone with quiet fire. "Because you don't understand humans. You see ruins and think death, but we are more than the sum of our ashes." Vex's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you, then?" She smiled, a smile that was both a promise and a challenge. Hope. But hope, Vex learned, was a dangerous thing. The silence around Earth was not empty. Something waited. Watching. Waiting. A presence darker than the void between stars. The ruins hid more than memories. They hid threats. They told me the humans were extinct, but extinction was never the end. It was only the beginning of the fight. Vex's mind raced. The enemy that had chased humanity into shadows was still out there. Still hunting. Still hungry. But the humans were ready. Because to survive the impossible, you must become something unstoppable. And so Vex chose. He would not just record this story. He would live it. This is more than survival. This is a testament to the human spirit, fierce, unyielding, and eternal. What does it mean to fight a war you can't see, against an enemy that wants to erase your very existence? Vex stared out at the horizon where the last light of day bled into endless night. Beneath the surface of Earth, the humans prepared, not just for survival, but for war. Maya moved beside him, her eyes sharp and steady. "They think we're dead," she said, "that we're gone." "But we are not," Vex said quietly. "We are waiting." The word hung in the air like a promise and a warning. Underground, in vast labyrinths carved from stone and steel, humans trained. Their weapons were old but deadly. their minds sharp and unyielding. Every soldier carried stories, stories of families lost, friends betrayed, of a world that had turned away. Vex felt the pulse of their determination. It was not just military discipline. It was something deeper, something he could almost touch. Loyalty. Sacrifice. Hope. In the quiet moments, Maya told him about the ancient pact. "We were given a choice," she said. "Hide and die or fight and live." And fight they did. Vex watched as humans stood tall against impossible odds, against the dark shadows that clawed at the edges of their world, against despair. But hope came with a price. Every victory demanded sacrifice. Every dawn was bought with loss. Vex saw it in Maya's eyes when she spoke of her family, gone but never forgotten. "It's not just about surviving," she said. "It's about what we choose to become." Her voice broke slightly, but her gaze never wavered. In the face of oblivion, humans don't just endure, they become legends. The stars blinked cold overhead, indifferent. But down here in the shadows of a forgotten world, a fire burned. The fire of defiance, of courage, of humanity. Vex reached out, taking Maya's hand. In that simple touch, a bridge formed, not just between two beings, but between two worlds. Because sometimes, the greatest strength is not in weapons or technology. It's in the heart. The universe may forget Earth, but Earth will never forget itself. When the darkness closes in, what keeps you standing? When everything inside screams to fall. Vex watched as Maya led a small group through the narrow tunnels, their footsteps soft but purposeful. Each face was etched with lines of weariness and resolve. They had been living in the shadows for generations, yet something within them refused to break. He asked himself, what was it that made these humans so unyielding, so stubbornly alive? The answer was simple, yet profound. Hope. Maya paused and turned to him, her voice barely more than a breath. "We don't have the luxury of giving up," she said. "Every day is a choice to fight, to protect, to remember." Vex nodded, understanding the weight of her words. The burden of memory was not just pain, it was power. The power to hold on, to push forward, to defy fate itself. As they reached an ancient command center, the walls hummed with the faint pulse of forgotten technology. Vex could feel the history in every crack, every shadow. Maps of stars etched in light. Coordinates marked with faded symbols. Plans. Warnings. He realized then that the humans had been preparing for this moment, long before the stars had forgotten them. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the tunnels, a deep, guttural warning that shook the stone. "We've been found," Maya said, eyes hardening. Vex's heart pounded, not with fear but with fierce determination. This was no longer just a mission. It was a war for survival. In the face of annihilation, humanity's greatest weapon is their refusal to be erased. They gathered quickly, weapons in hand, spirits steel forged. Vex looked at Maya, her face a mask of defiance and hope. And in that moment, he knew the story was no longer his to tell. It was theirs. The humans. The lost. The unstoppable. Because the true story of Earth is not in its ruins, but in its people. What does it mean to rise when the world has forgotten you? To stand when everything whispers to fall? The silence shattered. Echoes of footsteps, shouts in the dark. Vex felt the surge of adrenaline, but more than that, a deep, unshakable calm. Because he was no longer an outsider. He was part of something greater. Something eternal. Maya stood at the front, her voice ringing clear in the cavern. "We fight not because we believe we will win easily, but because we must win. Because our story, our history, is a flame that cannot be extinguished." The enemy pressed closer, shadows twisting like nightmares. But the humans did not falter. They moved with the rhythm of hope, fierce and unbreakable. Vex's gaze swept over the faces, each one a testament to sacrifice, courage, and love. He saw a people who had fallen, yes, but who had always risen, who had danced in the ruins, laughed in the darkness, and never, ever let go of the future. They told the stars that Earth was silent, that humanity was lost. But they were wronged, because humanity's true strength was never in its technology or weapons. It was in its heart, in the stubborn light that refuses to die, in the defiant spark that says, "We are here, we are alive, and we will be heard." As dawn broke through the cracks in the stone, light spilled over faces marked by hardship but glowing with hope. Vex knew this was only the beginning. A new chapter written in blood and memory. A story that would echo across the cosmos. To the universe, humanity may seem small, broken, forgotten. But to those who stand with them, they are a beacon, unstoppable, unyielding, and eternal. And in that light, Vex found his answer. The humans weren't just survivors. They were legends, guardians of hope. Because as long as one heart remembers, one voice sings, one flame burns, humanity will never be lost. This is our story, this is their legacy. The end.